Kicking off the list at number 10, Matthew Malloy. While we're eagerly awaiting the arrival of mutants into the MCU, there's quite a few mutants that I wouldn't want hanging out near Peter, Ned, or MJ, like Matthew Malloy, for example. See, Matthew was a regular Joe living in Charleston, South Carolina, but all of a sudden Earth gets hit with a Skrull invasion. Gotta love Mondays in the Marvel Universe. Sick. Things escalate when his wife Jules is vaporized by a blast from said Skrull ship, and his home was also just toast. Just a complete tragedy from the start. Now, one depressing, dark, lonely year later, he sees his late wife's sister, and they finally catch up. And it's hard for Matthew, of course, to talk about this stuff. This is still just a year ago, so it's all very fresh. So he's feeling it, and that's when his mutant powers decided to manifest. He erupted with energy, sadly also ending the life of Jules' sister. Not looking good so far. And then while he's standing there in shock, Maria Hill's hologram shows up out of a drone, and she's like, "Are you okay? Are you a mutant? What are your powers? What's going on? Do you have Geico?" He's a little stressed out on what's happening, so he freaks out a little more. So she sends in a strike team, and this just caused him to release even more energy and take even more lives. S.H.I.E.L.D. ended up sending in an airstrike, and that ended the lives of Cyclops, Magic, and Matthew, but those powers were better than we thought, because Matthew came back to life. Immortality for the win. Next, he teleported to the Jean Grey school, where he then took the life of Emma Frost. Now, Tempest at this point decided the only way to take care of this beyond Omega level threat was to go back in time and make sure his parents never meet. Then we can avoid having this supervillain from exploding over and over again. There's a link there, page 10. Mutants are cool and all, but this is evidence of how a regular guy can be riddled with tragedy in the Marvel Universe. Imagine if Zemo got these powers, Civil War would be over in like 22 minutes. Number 9, Molecule Man. Owen Reese started his days out as a small, puny, ridiculously looking laboratory technician whose life changed forever one day at work. Also, that's how the Watcher described him. I'm not being mean. He's breaking down his origins to the Fantastic Four, and he's low-key roasting the guy the entire time. It's pretty great. He was working for Acme Atomic Corp, but one day he got distracted and made a mistake while making adjustments to that atomic machine. He was distracted because he was monologuing about how much his life sucks. He was like, "Oh, I'm just a nobody wearing green pants at work, boo-hoo, no one knows my name." And then in the middle of his pity party, he gets blasted with energy, but somehow he survives. His boss of 12 years calls him in the office, and he's like, "Hey, I heard about your accident, Mr. whatever your name is. We can't have that happen here. You're fired." Which, first of all, as far as lawsuits go, could you imagine? But Owen doesn't pack up and leave. No, instead, he pulls out a wand that can control his powers, and he turns Boss Man into a snow cone. He can now control every molecule in the universe, and like Reed Richards says, if a man can control molecules, he can control anything. Guy's really brilliant with that groundbreaking assessment. Thanks, Reed. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, it's a lot of dark, tragic stuff going on here, so let's brighten the mood a little bit by doing a little hitting that button. Thanks so much, you guys are the best. Back to this list. Number 8, Mad Jim Jaspers. Old Jimmy J. Okay, he made his first appearance in Daredevil's number 7 back in 1983. He was created by Alan Davis and Alan Moore, and when he first hit the pages, he was a British politician serving as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He was serving as a member of Parliament for Haslab West, and he wasn't a fan of superheroes either. He wanted to keep Britain safe, and superheroes crashing through buildings and punching each other in the back, no thanks. Sounds like the opposite of safety. They're old school, I get it. But he also wasn't alone. Many others agreed with him, and in turn, he won a general election. Only 2 issues after he's introduced, we find out he's a mutant with reality warping powers, who of course is also insane. He was just taking out other heroes so that he could rule secretly. Classic little twisty twist. He created and used this machine called the Fury, which hunted down superhumans. Meanwhile, he would be off committing crimes with his Alice in Wonderland themed gang. I know Disney loves crossovers, but I think this would be a little too weird. Number 7, Mephisto. In a list of villains too powerful for the MCU, clearly Mephisto is on that list. We thought he was going to be the one pulling the strings in WandaVision, but as the catchy theme song revealed, it was Agatha Harkness all along. Mephisto made his first full appearance in Silver Surfer issue 3, and he's been making deals with everybody since. Like when Spider-Man revealed his identity in the Civil War storyline, that led to a bullet striking Aunt May, so he offers Peter a deal while Aunt May is dying in the hospital. The world will forget Peter Parker is truly Spider-Man, but in turn Mephisto gets his marriage. It's kind of like Shrek 4, but way more fun. And this movie's probably gonna make way more money than Shrek 4. I mean, maybe, hopefully, I hope. That is it. You don't even need to be a superhero to have an eventful night with Mephisto either. Like in Journey into Mystery issue 627, he would show up to a random pub and he tells the bartender a story, and if you listen to his tale, he'll give you a nice fat tip. But if you slip up, things can get pretty ugly. Next time you get that really annoying regular at your bar, just think it could literally be the devil and be a lot worse. Consider yourself lucky. Number 6. Vulcan. The younger brother of both Cyclops and Havoc, Gabriel Summers made his first appearance in X-Men Deadly Genesis. Before Catherine Summers even had a chance to give birth to the third child, he was transferred into an incubation accelerator, so he grew up real quick. After this, he was sent to Earth to work for Eric the Red, but luckily he didn't stick around to let that happen too long. He changed his name quickly from Gabriel to Kid Vulcan, which sounds way cooler already, but was also inspired by Roman mythology. I guess the other names already belong to DC characters. But Xavier eventually met him, and because of his mental powers, he knew that this boy was a relative to the Summers family. Vulcan had forgotten about his history at this point as well, but he suited up with Petra, Darwin, and Sway, and together they rescued the original X-Men. It wasn't easy though. Cyclops thought Vulcan had died when the island decided to fight back. Vulcan is an Omega level mutant, and he's also insane. What a jazzy combo. Vulcan can manipulate, absorb, and control energy. This includes Cyclops' optic blasts or even Adam Warlock's energy. And of course, interstellar flight makes those cosmic commutes nice and smooth. Number 5. Onslaught. Making his first debut in X-Men issue 15, Onslaught was a sentient psionic entity created from the minds of Charles Xavier and Magneto. So when the X-Men were fighting the Acolytes, Wolverine hit Magneto, and then in turn Magneto ripped the adamantium from his bones, which I've mentioned on other lists before because that's one of the more painful encounters I've ever seen in comic books. His healing factor then had to work overtime, and Xavier at this point decided it would be the right move to just shut Magneto's mind down, so then he made him catatonic. But during this exact moment, all of Magneto's lust for hate and violence leaked into Charles' subconscious, creating this new personality, Onslaught. Onslaught is quite lucky, because now he gets to tap into the psychic resources of the astral plane where he can manipulate matter and energy. I mean, let's get X-Men into the MCU first, and then we'll start talking about evil mashups and swaps. Number 4. Mojo. Making his first debut in Longshot issue 3, Mojo is known for using Earth as forms of TV entertainment for the universe. Just like the team over here at Top 10 Nerd, the more views he gets for this interdimensional TV show, the more powerful he gets as well. So if you didn't hit that like button, now you really have to. So in the 1992 issue titled Mojo's Media Madness, he had this wild storyline where Mojo gets Rogue, Cyclops, Beast, and Wolverine, and they all think that they're characters from The Wizard of Oz. It sounds fun, but for the MCU this would be way too stupid, dare I say. The comic is crazy enough. I mean, we see his madness really unfold in X-Men issue 10. Mojo is a unique villain. He's part of a race called the Spineless Beings, and they're from a planet named after him called Mojo World inside of a pocket dimension called Mojoverse. It's just all about him, eh? Wow. So this race of spineless beings were also slowly going crazy over time because TV signals from other space-time continuums like ours were scattered into their timelines. He's a powerful sorcerer. We're not exactly sure just how far his magic can go. We'll stick to watching these guys on our TV rather than having them sucked into a interdimensional Netflix, you know? That sounds better. Number 3. Apocalypse. Making his first steps in Marvel graphic novel issue 17 and then making his first full appearance in X Factor issue 5, Apocalypse was born nearly 5,000 years ago at the edge of the Valley of the Kings in ancient Egypt. He was abandoned by his tribe because of the fact that he looked different. He had the Blue Man Group avatar vibe going on, so they left the child. How mean. Later on, he was raised by the nomads with the idea that only the strong survive. So already such a tragic childhood. Now in the desert, along came Baal of the Crimson Sands, leader of the Sandstormers, and he saw this kid crying and he also saw potential, because clearly he was different. So he named him An-Sabanur, which translates to Morning Light. He grew up becoming the most feared in the land, and eventually Baal led him to Ramatut's time ship in an underground tomb. Now, Baal didn't survive this cave expedition, but Nur was now determined to be anything but an abused worker. Now he wanted revenge on Ramatut, the pharaoh ruler. And after being thrown into a pit of snakes, Nur grew in size and strength, easily defeating all the guards before finally declaring himself Apocalypse. We had this guy already in the Foxverse, but it didn't feel too great. I think we should let that wound heal a bit before bringing him into the MCU with the X-Men. Maybe like 8 years, then we'll talk. Number 2. MODOK. Making its first appearance in Tales of Suspense issue 93, MODOK was created by Dr. George Tarleton. He had worked with the team recently to create the Cosmic Cube, but the scientist supreme, Lyle Getz, figured the next logical step was figuring out a way to understand the powers inside said cube. We see this happen a little bit in the MCU. So enter Project MODOK, yes, spelled with a C at the end instead of a K. That's important, you gotta remember that. MODOK stood for Mental Organism Designed Only for Computing. It sounds like a high-tech series, sounds perfect. What a great way to analyze and probe this cosmic cube. So they grabbed that scientist George that I mentioned and altered him into this big-headed supercomputer. That's when things start to go south, obviously. With a brain too big for his body, they had to give him a hover chair, which is referred to as the Doomsday Chair. Already this is downhill. This scientist did not know that with great power comes great responsibility, so it wasn't long before MODOK overtook his masters, changed that last letter from a C to a K, making his new, more suitable name for the list, MODOK, Mental Organism Designed Only for Killing. He's the big bad in the new Avengers game that's not too good, but it's still worth a play, and yes, he's as crazy as it sounds. And finally, number 1, Galactus. Wielder of the power cosmic, this one has to eat planets in order to survive. Yummy. We saw him in Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. Well, I mean, we saw a cloud that sort of looked like him, I guess. Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds. Let's talk about him. The Great Destroyer made his first appearance in Fantastic Four issue 48. He's the sole survivor of the 6th incarnation of the multiverse. But originally he was a humanoid named Galan, born on a previous version of Earth called Planet Ta. It was a paradise whose civilization was much more advanced than any other in the universe at the time, which sounds quite lovely. But when the cosmos were soon ending the embodiment of the 6th infinity, the sentience of the multiverse approached Galan and merged with him. So now Galactus resides in the 7th iteration of his universe, which is home to our Earth 616. He's extremely powerful. He once ate all the Infinity Stones, so maybe we'll just keep them hidden in Casey's office desk for now. Number 10, the Jury. When there was a mass breakout from the vault, General Owen Taylor's son, Hugh, was tragically killed by Venom. So Taylor and his other son, Max, were out for some sweet revenge. Now, some other hotheads eventually got involved, and eventually they were called the Jury. They kidnapped Spider-Man and tried him for bringing the symbiote to Earth in the first place. They were pretty official. The Jury would be awesome in the MCU because when the Jury lost their support staff and funding, they were all hired by Edwin Cord, which was an enemy of Iron Man's. Now at the same time, US Agent was hired to be the team's leader. The Jury wears modified guardsman armor, with each member rocking a cool weapon. In Thunderbolt issue 23, we see Sentry, Bomb Blast, Firearm, Ramshot, and Whisper on the team. We're getting Armor Wars in the MCU, so never say never. If Venom comes to the MCU, US Agent would totally get involved. He's already on the naughty list. Number 9, Pyre. First appearing in Venom Funeral Pyre issue 1, Gray Russell was a young journalist who discovered his dying father was working for Hydra. Oof, big oof on that one. So Gray went to an abandoned Hydra base to get more info on his father, or really any info in general. And when he got there, a gang had taken over the land. So Gray hired 2 guys to go in and attack a lone member of this gang, and then Gray came in and then saved them, you know, the classic. He saved them, they accepted him into their ranks, all was going well, but when it came to initiation time, Gray had to take part in a drive-by shooting. These guys were the real deal. The Punisher then came in, obviously, and then everything got quite messy. But while that popped off, Gray was able to run back to the lab where the Super Soldier program was left. Gray entered a chamber, clicked some buttons, and then turned himself into Pyre. And before we continue on with this list, you already know the drill. Go give us a thumbs up if you're loving this nerdy content. And also give us a thumbs up just because, you know, we're having a good time. Number 8, Virus. Matt Gargan blamed Venom for ruining his entire life. This was after absolute carnage. Gargan was left a paraplegic, so he got all of his money and did a supervillain gear haul. He got an old War Machine suit, vibro shock gauntlets, an old Goblin glider, and pumpkin bombs. He made this entire new suit, gave it a menacing paint job, and went after Venom, now as Virus. He ambushed Eddie and actually managed to separate him from the symbiote, while of course monologuing about his cursed past the whole time. Gargan almost took Eddie out when he was crushing his ribcage, but luckily the symbiote had his back and Gargan had to retreat. When Virus attacked again, he followed Dylan Brock to a warehouse owned by the Maker. Virus fought through the Maker's defenses and kept attacking Venom to a point where he accidentally destabilized the Maker's interdimensional portal machine, and when Venom and Dylan got sucked into it, Virus went as well. No matter matter where they end up, Virus wanted to end Venom, even if it's Universe 1610. Number 7. Jacko Lantern. First appearing in Captain America issue 396, Steve Levins was originally a villain to Cap and Spider-Man. Now he was part of the Red Skull skeleton crew, but later on, his recent origins, they're actually quite tragic. In Venom Volume 2, Jack was this troubled child who disobeyed his parents and enjoyed hurting animals, just all around not a great pupil. One Halloween, he visited the crime master who straight up kidnapped this child, but over time, Jack believed that he was his real father. It was twisted stuff. And on top of that, he was trained to be a master assassin, and to show his devotion to his new father, he took out his real parents in a brutal way. He turned them into human jack-o'-lanterns. So I'll let you paint that photo in your head for a bit. When Crime Master sent Jack to find Dr. Ekmakik, who was an expert in handling Antarctica vibranium, Flash Thompson's Agent Venom was also trying to do the same. Neither of them got their hands on this guy, but they did become enemies in the process, which, well, that's all you need really. Number 6. The Sin Eater. Great nickname, love him already. Stanley Carter entered comics way back with Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 107. As a child, Stanley was sent to live with his grandparents in the Ozarks. His father passed away at a young age and his mom was in a rehab clinic. So again, a tough upbringing. These villain stories just don't come out of nowhere, it's always a tragic start. After his grandfather got bit by a rattlesnake, Jesus, he sadly didn't make it, but there was a sin-eating ritual held for him where a masked hermit came along and then ate fruit from his dead corpse. Disgusting. So when the Sin Eater looked at Stanley, he felt a connection with him. Maybe it was the raspberries and the guts on his face. It was maybe hard to look away. I don't know. I'm gonna throw up. Weeks later, his mother returned and took him with her to New York City. Stanley grew up to become a SHIELD agent where he volunteered for an experimental drug. This drug was said to increase strength and stamina, and now this obviously didn't work, and he immediately started to go mad. He got a shotgun, a new costume, and sought out to rid the world of sins himself. SHIELD experiment gone wrong. We can never have enough of those in the MCU. Throw them in, why not? Let's do it. Number 5, the Stalkers. Making their first appearance in Venom Knights of Vengeance issue 1 back in 1994, the Stalkers are former mercenary gun runners. We have Briggs, Cass, Raiden, and Trent. Their whole thing was selling guns, but one day when they picked up these weapons from an alien ship, they themselves were infected with a techno-organic virus. A strange voice had encouraged them to pick up these weapons, and like fools, they did, and now they're a super crew with super weapons built in to their bodies. The virus took over their entire body, and eventually the Stalkers started to behave like hunters. They wanted to eliminate every human from the planet, as do most of these villains for some reason. So Venom had to take them down, of course. The final Stalker Venom had to fight was Trent, big old T Trent. He had just absorbed everything at this point and was able to take on Venom and Vengeance at the same time. That's wild. Now Venom luckily hit him with his own energy lance, but that fight was way too close for comfort. If we had him in the MCU or any of these guys, it would be a blast. Number 4, Juggernaut. Kane Marco has been one of Marvel's biggest and baddest characters since his first appearance in X-Men issue 12. Once Marco came into contact with the gem in the Lost Temple of Cyttorak, he himself obtained the power of the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak, becoming a human Juggernaut. Kane was hired by Scarmore CEO Charles Evans to take care of anybody who was planning to sue his company. If you can't beat him in court, just beat him up. Alright, sure. One of those targets was Venom's love, Beck Underwood. So of course he went toe-to-toe with Kane. The pair fought for a long time, and Juggernaut was just whipping Venom around, adding to his anger, and then in turn he was getting hit right back from Venom. It got to a point where the Juggernaut just gave up and left the fight. He just abandoned his entire contract. I love it. They're bringing Deadpool over to the MCU, so hopefully Juggernaut can squeeze in as well. One can dream, right? Number 3, Scream. Making its first appearance in Venom Lethal Protector number 4, this scary looking symbiote is one of the 5 Life Foundation symbiotes. Donna Diego, a Life Foundation volunteer, bonded with the symbiote and became Scream. She made a fun appearance in the Venom movie, but still, it's not the MCU. We need them in the MCU. We need web swingers. It has to happen. They need to meet Spider-Man. She helped new hosts deal with a new symbiote merging, and I imagine it's not too comfortable to have an alien race inside of your head, so she comes in handy. The coolest thing about her is that she can use her hair to fight as well, so she's pretty unique to watch in action. In the comics, she went like 20 years without actually having a proper name, which is wild to me. She didn't don the name Scream until a toy line from Toy Biz dropped the action figure in the 90s, and they just titled it Scream. So yeah, she deserves more attention. Definitely put her in the MCU as well. Number 2, Toxin. Born from Carnage, we have symbiote number 1000. Toxin first appeared in Venom vs. Carnage number 2 in 2004. Now when Carnage was giving birth to Toxin, Carnage initially wanted to destroy the spawn. But once Toxin was finally born, Carnage was too weak by the process to kill it at that point. Venom, on the other hand, wanted to raise the spawn and train it, and even named it Toxin. See, he gets a name, come on guys. New York City cop Patrick Mulligan then became the host host of the symbiote. Patrick actually left his wife and kid because this thing was too unpredictable and powerful and dangerous. So Venom and Carnage saw this police officer infused with Toxin and knew that it would most likely end up becoming a hero. A hero with the abilities to shapeshift, unlimited webbing, healing factor, tracking specialties. It could even hide itself in the blood of its host, so this is a pretty dangerous hero. So they both obviously wanted to try and kill it, and of course they both failed. Toxin stands out from the rest of the symbiotes because, as I said earlier, he's spawn number 1000. Every 1000 generations, the symbiote is born with what's called genetic memory breakdown, and since he was abandoned at a young age, he never really acted like a true symbiote in the first place. During a heated battle with Venom and Carnage, Toxin was actually given a helping hand by the web-slinger himself, Spider-Man. After the unlikely duo defeated Venom and Carnage, Spider-Man encouraged him just to be better. I would love to see this unfold in the MCU. Bring over Venom, Carnage, let's bring them all over, let's party. Then we can do all these amazing relationships with Spider-Man. That's the whole point. Please, please. And finally, number 1. Null. The god of the symbiotes himself, here we go. Making his debut in Venom Volume 4, Issue 3. So all the way before life and creation itself, before the universe even, I'm talking way back in the day, ancient deities awaited in the darkness. Once the universe became a thing, Null, the god of darkness, wasn't a fan of the company, and he set out to destroy the Celestials and then he immediately went to war. So after forging the All Black, which was a sword of living darkness, and a Celestial's head, he got his ass handed to him. He figured out a new plan. He figured, you know what, maybe if I can just create symbiotes, I can manifest my own suit and then create an army and then go after these gods. He's recently given the Avengers a run for their money when he arrived on Earth in King in Black. If you haven't read King in Black, you must do so right after this video. Kicking off the list at number 10, Moonstone. She made her first debut in Captain America issue 192. Carla Soffin was a psychiatrist, but instead of helping her patients, she sent them into paranoia instead. So the worst doctor ever, that's great. This life choice led her down the path to become a villain, obviously, starting with an assistant position to the Dr. Faustus. So eventually she made her way to Lloyd Block, the original Moonstone. Then she poisoned him with hallucinogens, and then she made him hand over the Moonstone, which was a Kree device that grants the users like tons of powers. So we can see this exchange go down in the Incredible Hulk issue 299. She gives the Hulk a run for his money. She then joined the Masters of Evil and went up against the Avengers numerous times. She was one of the villains that stepped up once the Avengers went missing. She was on the Thunderbolts team, referring to herself as Meteorite, which sounds almost more scary, more villainous than anything. And before we go on with this list of Hulk villains, guys, if you want to go ahead and smash that like button, Hulk smash that like button, if I may, because it helps out our channel tons here. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. Now let's get back to this list already. Number 9. UFOs. Yes, one of the biggest Hulk villains is a group of UFOs flying in the sky, God forbid. No, the UFOs made their first comic book debut in Incredible Hulk issue 254. They were inspired by the Fantastic Four's origin story, okay? So they were power hungry and they went to great lengths to get it. Now their plan was to recreate that same accident that gave the Fantastic Four their powers. I mean, they even went so far as to get the same engineers that built the original shuttle. So they were pretty committed. Their attempt was going well until, of course, Dr. Banner intervened. He thought the group had been exposed by accident, and when he found their ground control facility, he did the hero thing and brought the shuttle safely back down in order to save their lives. But they didn't want to be saved. They got powers, however, all 4 of them got powers, and when they saw Banner was the one to interrupt them from perhaps even getting more powers, they lashed out at him. And they went on to call themselves the UFOs. Number 8. Tyrannus. He made his first comic book debut in Incredible Hulk issue 5. Romulus Augustulus was the last emperor of the Roman Empire. He was born a little bit before us, you know, back in the year 463 AD, so he's kind of old, a little bit. At just the age 12, he took the throne. Age 12! That's some Game of Thrones stuff right there. I bet he was a better leader than Joffrey still. So he had the throne, but nobody took him seriously because, well, yeah, he was 12. He's trying to knight people and like his hands are small. He's like, like, what? Who are you? What are you doing? Get out of here. You're nothing. So he ruled for about 12 months, and then his father was defeated by the German Goth Odoacer, which kicked off the Dark Ages in Europe. He was then banished from the kingdom where little 12-year-old Romulus swore to return. And he did. He returned in the 6th century as Tyrannus, when he became a servant of Pluto, who empowered him and sent him to destroy Merlin. Like the magician Merlin. Merlin whooped his ass and then banished Romulus, or Tyrannus, beneath the earth to a realm called Subterranea. Now while under there, he found a bunch of deviant technology, and then he attacked Earth, finding the Fountain of Youth along the way. which made him young forever, made him young for centuries, and then eventually he ended up kidnapping Betty Ross and holding her as hostage in order to try and conquer the United States, which got the big green guy on his radar. Number 7, Bi-Beast. This guy is wild. Okay, so the Bi-Beast started off as an android with 2 heads. So he had a head here and then a head here. Now the top head has knowledge of warfare, and the bottom head has knowledge of culture. It was created by the bird people, the avian race that were subspecies of the Inhumans. Now he's only around for one comic, that comic being The Incredible Hulk issue 169. Nice. So once the bird people had all passed away, this android was left in the floating city of Aerie. And then later down the road, Bi-Beast saw the Harpy with Banner and got some flashbacks to its bird masters, so it captured them both and demanded that Banner uses his brain to fix the decaying machines in the city. So Banner didn't do that. Instead, he cured the Harpy back into Betty Ross mode, which angered Bi-Beast even more. So now there's a fight with the Hulk and this 2-headed monster. It got pretty distracted when AIM was striking down on the city in a force led by MODOK, and he got stressed out and this thing straight up blew itself up. He's like, damn, the city's being attacked, Bruce Banner's got hands, ugh, see ya. But wait, there's more. See, the bird people actually created a second Bi-Beast, which did survive and kept going after the Hulk and other heroes. We love backups. Can't go wrong with backups. Number 6, Peacemeal. He first entered the world of comics with Incredible Hulk issue 407. Peacemeal was created by scientists working for the Red Skull in the Amazon jungle. He's a cyborg villain with claws that can cut through anything, your hopes and dreams, whatever, you name it, it'll cut right through. Now they wanted to use him as this being, this artificial being with all the abilities of the New World Order members included. Now they started to work on Project Peacemeal, but one of these scientists, Madman, rather fitting name, went a little bit too far, and without anybody knowing, he planted a device in Peacemeal so the android would follow his commands only. Kind of like Ultron almost, but with less James Spader and more gunslinger, you know? Peacemeal tried to escape this lab numerous times. One time the Juggernaut fought back and sent him back to the lab, and he's not having an easy go. Even when he tries to get out, it's not easy. So Peacemeal eventually grabbed onto the bottom of a plane and snuck out of Brazil and headed to Europe, where he visited the one place you would go to, you know, Loch Ness, and then he frightened tourists. That's when the Hulk came around and the two fought it out. So when Peacemeal changed his appearance to match the Hulk's, it distracted Banner long enough for the scientist to knock Banner out. That madman scientist knocked him right out. He didn't use a blow dart. I don't know why I did that, but I feel like we should use more blow darts. Number 5, Agamemnon. Valley Halfling. Made his debut in Incredible Hulk 379, and he's the son of a mortal woman and Loki. Like, Loki. Yeah, Loki brought him to Asgard and took care of him. Now, Valley once ended up in Hell, one time. Now, the underworld of Asgard is usually a pretty rough place, but since Hela was his half-sister, she released him. See, it's all about who you know, guys. It's all about who you know. Valley upset many Asgardians by stealing their secrets, so Odin did what he does best, and he sent him off. Bye, peace, off to another realm, get out of here, go, scoot. He banished him to Earth, cursed with eternal adolescence. So Valley traded the pick of his future offspring to the Trojan race in exchange for knowledge of immortality, which is just a great deal all around. You think of both sides, you're like, I'll never have either of these, this is great. Now, he's never confirmed or denied that he was the Agamemnon who was king of Argos and commander-in-chief of the Greek army against Troy in ancient times, but at this point, I'm afraid to ask. Nobody wants to know. They're like, you know what? Keep your secrets, Mr. Secret Man. He's quite powerful, being a master tactician and strategist, and he's also quite experienced in the use of magique. So the one downside is that he's forever young, so he'll never get into bars. No, he's constantly being distracted by hormonal changes and even acne, so we're only human. Kind of. Number 4, Armageddon. Making his first debut in Incredible Hulk issue 413, he was also young when his life got turned upside down. Fresh Prince. His father lost his life in a space battle, so he was up to bat when it came to claiming the throne of the Trojan Empire. Now, he did wonders in charge. He led his troops to many victories, worlds, galaxies, solar systems. He was claiming them all. Like, his wife passed away, and this guy was so into ruling that he didn't even notice. She had 2 sons, though, before she passed away, twin boys. But even they had to learn from Lord Vito, Armageddon's friend and advisor, because that's how far away he was. Not a great father. So one of the sons ended up not surviving a mission to Earth, and the other son fell in love with that other son's killer. That son, appropriately named Trauma, kidnapped Atlanta and brought her back to his homeworld, where his father Armageddon was quite impressed. Now the Hulk, Silver Surfer, and the Starjammers came around to demand her release, but he stood by his son's decision and fought the heroes off. Now Armageddon has the Trojan ability to channel cosmic energies through his body and can even withstand a blow from the World Breaker Hulk. So he's not one to mess around with. Number 3, Zax. Okay, this one's wild, although I have a feeling we're probably never going to see him in live action. One can only dream. So Zax, I'm going to say Zax every time. No, I'm just kidding. So Zax made his first appearance in the Incredible Hulk issue 166. Right there on the cover it says It, the thing from Dynamo. It was originally the product of an accident that happened at Edison nuclear power plant when a group of criminals tried to power off New York City. So the gunfire that happened caused this massive chain reaction in the atomic reactor and resulted in this psionically charged electromagnetic field of humanoid form to be birthed. Okay, so basically he's a supervillain that can take out anybody in its way. Just a big electric mess. All Zax has to do is absorb their intelligence, and in turn it gets smarter, bigger, and badder. Being a creature of pure electricity, it can fly, manipulate electrical fields, and absorb people, all except the Hulk, you guessed it. Which makes for a suitable battle. Big green punchy guy versus Zax, the electrical cloud of emotions. 9 tickets in IMAX, please, thanks. Debit? Number 2, Sandman. While Sandman is more commonly known as a Spider-Man villain, sure, he does get on the naughty list for more than one superhero. One of them, of course, being the Incredible Hulk. So when the Sandman found out about the Air Force testing this new space warp ship, he wanted it for himself. I mean, who wouldn't want that lying around in their driveway? Are you kidding? Absolutely. So he wanted it so he could free his friend Blaster from the negative zone. So when he went to the military base, he met the Hulk, convinced the Hulk to help him out, and then while the Hulk was attacking the base and fighting off General Ross and all his forces, Sandman tried to take the ship for himself, that greedy little sandy fella. But Betty Ross was threatened, so the Hulk clapped his hands so hard that Sandman got blasted all across the area. Just nothing but sand, like a bathing suit after it was shaked out after a day at the beach. The Sandman was eventually knocked into a pressurized vat where he later emerged made out of glass. We love science. So if we need to beat the Sandman, we just gotta clap really hard at the same time. That's it. Guys, we all watch Friends. We watch the intro at the same time and we do those 4 claps. Boom, no more Sandman. He's gone. Otherwise, for sure, we need the Hulk. Call him immediately. And finally, number 1, Thanos. I have to finish with this one because although Thanos was in the MCU for sure, I still believe he's a villain that the Hulk should not go against. He's too powerful. Even before Thanos obtains all the Infinity Stones, he's able to lay out the Hulk in the opening scene of Infinity War. He doesn't even use the one stone that he does have, the Power Stone. No, all he needs is his big titan fists and a couple neck jabs, and the Hulk will literally retire. Even when Bruce Banner needs him to come back later on in the film, the Hulk's like, no, absolutely not. That guy? Yeah, get lost. I'm all set. You have the Hulkbuster, you don't need me, bye. In Infinity issue 6, we see Thanos knock the Hulk back with just one punch. And if raw strength wasn't enough to do the job, Thanos has made the Hulk attack his fellow Avengers in Avengers Assemble Volume 2, issue 4. There's also the series Thanos vs. the Hulk that was released back in 2015, and it's a bloody good time. I remember the first time seeing Infinity War when the Hulk got rocked. I was genuinely afraid of Thanos. I'm like, oh, he does more than sit in a throne after all. I'm gonna go change my pants now. Cheers.
Number 10, Quasar. Quasar is Wendell Vaughn, a being of pure quantum energy. When armed with his quantum bands, he is even more powerful. The quantum bands allow Quasar to create constructs and shields. They also give him the power to absorb energy and complete quantum jumps, effectively teleporting. Quasar managed to survive in a fight against Annihilus, attempting to teleport away before he was destroyed, but only managing to do so at the last minute with his mind. For a time, he'd become trapped in the negative zone mentally, ceasing to have a physical form, passing on the mantle of Quasar for a time to Phyla-Vell and Nova's Richard Rider after. However, Quasar's defeat during Annihilation would seemingly only make him stronger, as after a time he managed to somehow regain his physical form, returning only to go on a journey to the Cancerverse, acting as a scout for his own universe. Existing as a being of pure quantum energy means that Quasar is a powerful hero to go up against, and might make him too powerful for the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the end. Good old Wendell. Number 9, Gladiator. Gladiator is one of those heroes whose powers are only limited by his own state of mind. literally. Gladiator's confidence is directly tied to his power levels, and the more confident that he feels, the more unstoppable he becomes. For a time, Gladiator actually ruled his people as the Magister of the Shi'ar Empire, out in space. But more recently, he decided to step down, believing that a Naramani was needed on the throne and relinquishing his place to Xandra. Gladiator himself is Kalark, a Strontian, who went through an enhancement process to make him worthy of the rank of Gladiator. He is immensely powerful, being super strong, fast, agile, invulnerable, and possessing a healing factor. He is capable of interstellar flight and is an incredibly gifted and experienced fighter. And friends, if you are liking this list and you want more lists like it, if you want that part 3, I don't know if we can do one, but I mean there's a lot of characters in the Marvel Universe, so I'm sure we can. Be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Black Bolt. Black Bolt is the king of the Inhumans. We probably won't see him anytime soon in the MCU, not just because you'd then have to explain all about the Inhumans and what they're up to, and because he's super OP and can wipe out most opponents with just a whisper, but because we already tried to introduce the world to the Inhumans via their own television series, and it did not go well. Black Bolt, however, still has some pretty cool powers, and the Inhumans are a pretty cool bunch, if we did feel that they might be a good fit. We just might have to tone down Black Bolt's powers somewhat, or maybe also find like another way to have them? I don't know. He was considered powerful enough to take on Thanos, and he even survived a one-on-one battle against him in the comics. He was able to shatter Thanos' armor during their fight, though his powerful voice did not harm the Mad Titan directly. Rats. He also seemingly killed one of the most powerful Omega level mutants around, Vulcan, who was on part 1 of our list. However, this was later retconned to not have actually happened, as we later learned during Hickman's reign over the X-Books that Vulcan actually survived the fight. Apparently. He looked pretty dead. It looked like he was pretty dead, but he survived. How? We don't know. Number 7. Starbrand. Another cosmic hero who right now is in the care, I suppose, of the Avengers is Starbrand. Well, one of the Starbrands. There have been other Starbrands before in Marvel Comics, but this one is unique in the sense that she is just a little baby, or maybe more of a toddler now, actually. Either way, it would be pretty weird to see such a powerful young one fighting as a member of the Avengers, unless we're thinking of going the route of Baby Yoda, I guess, aka Grogu in Star Wars. Still, it seems unlikely. Whether it's little baby Selby or Kevin Connor, it's very unlikely that we're going to get either of the Starbrands out in the MCU. Their invulnerability, super strength, matter manipulation, energy manipulation, cosmic awareness, and healing powers may simply just be too much for the MCU to handle. Sorry, Starbrands. Number 6. Hyperion. Hyperion is known for being Marvel's version of a literal Superman. Sure, we have Sentry and Captain America, who are comparable in terms of their powers and their role, but Hyperion in the newest Heroes Reborn series seemed to be really exuding those Superman vibes. Here, Hyperion was the leader of the Squadron Supreme of America, an elite team of heroes who were also all kinda messed up. Hyperion himself seemingly had a god complex that perhaps was well earned considering what he was capable of. When all their enemies escaped their negative zone prison, Mark Milton as Hyperion was the first to respond, and he handedly took down pretty much everyone who got out, including Galactus, a version of Gladiator, a version of the Beyonder, a Giant Man version of Ultron / Evil Hank Pym, and a version of the Annihilation Wave. Granted, this Hyperion technically is an alt version, but either way you slice it, either way you dice it, any version of the hero is really too powerful and likely too similar to DC's Supes to make an appearance in the MCU. Number 5. Magic. Teleporters always rank high on my list of powerful heroes because I think teleportation is super OP, and Magic is definitely no exception there, although she is exceptional. So exceptional in fact, if we didn't get to see her in the MCU, I personally would not be surprised. True, we did get to see Magic appear in the New Mutants film, but that itself was outside of MCU continuity and canon, so doesn't count, which is really unfortunate as Anya Taylor-Joy was perfect in that role, and we likely won't get to see her take up the mantle again, which kinda bums me out. Magic is a member of the New Mutants who is also known for being not just a powerful teleporter, but magic wielder as the ruler of Limbo. This is where Magic teleports through to get where she is going. While in limbo, she also becomes god level due to her attachment and relationship with the dimension. Magik also has a dark side known as Dark Child. While in her Dark Child persona, she becomes virtually unstoppable and generally a lot more evil. Number 4. Nova. It feels pretty unlikely that we'll ever get to see any version of Nova show up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point. Why? Well, because the Nova Corps were seemingly wiped out by Thanos when he went after them for the Power Stone. It's believed that all of Xandar was decimated in his attack, which likely means that the Nova Corps who were there were some of the first people to go. Unless there was somehow, I guess, a lone survivor who could become Nova in the future, it seems very unlikely we'll see any kind of character attached to Xandar or the Corps. This could be just what Marvel Studios was hoping to eliminate the chances of, though, with this plot point, as all versions of Nova are considered to be pretty epically powerful, whether we're talking about Sam Alexander, Rich Rider, or Eve Bakian. Just all the Novas. They're just all pretty crazy. Number 3. Blue Marvel. So as much as I really want Adam Brashear to come to the MCU, there is also a concern many have around the fact that this hero might just be too powerful to appear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least as he is in the comics. Maybe if we toned him down? Granted, we have Captain Marvel, and now we have Monica Rambeau, who's pretty crazy powerful. So I'm really hoping I'm wrong about this one. But still, there is Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau, and then there is Blue Marvel, who's kind of operating on a whole other level, due to the fact that his powers are derived from antimatter, and the fact that he is basically an antimatter generator / reactor. And if you don't know, antimatter is like crazy powerful and crazy efficient in the Marvel universe. I don't know about antimatter in real life. I don't even know if there is antimatter in real life. I don't know about that science. Number 2. Eternity. Eternity is not a conventional hero and more a cosmic entity, but like the Living Tribunal, they are also generally seen as a force of good, so hence why I'm counting them on the list. Eternity is actually just below the Living Tribunal in terms of rank in the universe and is the personification of time. They exist alongside their sister, Infinity. Eternity is capable of manipulating time and space on a lucrative scale. They are immortal and are considered an integral part of the universe, existing alongside other major concepts, which are also represented by powerful entities. Number 1. One Above All. The One Above All isn't your typical hero, but they are a very powerful force of good in the MCU, like Eternity. One Above All is seen as the creator of the multiverse and all beings within it. They are basically the god of the multiverse, the ultimate creator. We talked about the Living Tribunal on part 1 of this list, who is seen as the ultimate bringer of justice, the ultimate judge throughout the Marvel multiverse, and the One Above All is actually believed to be the entity that the Living Tribunal works for. One Above All is believed to be all-powerful and omnipotent, getting involved in the matters of its creations only when its interference is truly needed. They were the one who made Adam Warlock take up the mantle as their new Living Tribunal as payment for restoring all of reality after it was destroyed, which seems like a fair trade. They're like, hey, Adam Warlock, do this job and have lots of power, and I will return reality. Just come work for me, you know? I need a new Living Tribunal. You know how it is when the Living Tribunal dies. Actually, I don't know how that is. Sounds like a very rare problem.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have the Absorbing Man. Carl Crusher Creel already sounds intimidating enough. The Absorbing Man made his comic book debut back in Journey into Mystery issue 114. He was raised in the Bronx, and at a young age his mother passed away, and his father certainly wasn't there for him after. He was not a role model as well, to say the least. So sadly, Carl turned to the life of crime in order to pay the bills. And while he was spending time in the gym, he realized he was actually a pretty great boxer. He did so well that he became known as Crusher Creel, but that life of crime was still sprinkled in there, and then he was recruited as an enforcer for the Owl's Men. He eventually got caught and locked up, but this is when things start going a little bit fun in a way. See, Loki, you know, Loki's a god of mischief. He added this rare Asgardian herb to Carl's drinking water in hopes that he would get this new ability to take down Thor. Now, this new ability made him the Absorbing Man, a guy who could absorb the physical properties of anybody that he came into contact with. His first battle was with Thor, and then when he came back to Earth, he went toe-to-toe with the Hulk. I'd love an Absorbing Man in the MCU, honestly. I feel like I could watch 2 movies with Carl just fist bumping all of our Avengers and causing chaos, taking powers, of course. course. And before we go on to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and toss this video a thumbs up, that would be great because those likes do wonders for our page. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Now back to some more Hulk villains. Number 9, Speed Freak. Making his first debut in Incredible Hulk issue 388, Speed Freak aka Joss Shapp was a criminal who at one point got addicted to the substance called Snap. Oh snap. This plus the fact that he stole a super suit from an inventor sounds like a perfect supervillain origin story in the making. So Speed Freak had been hired by a man named Mr. Lang, and one of his first jobs was to attack a guy who had infected Mr. Lang's son. So Speed Freak went to fight it out, and while there, he had the misfortune of crossing paths with the Incredible Hulk, who tossed Speed Freak quite the distance. So his suit alone gives Speed Freak quite the advantage. It gives him the ability to hover above the ground, flying, literally being able to fly, and he also has arm-mounted adamantium cutting blades, so he might be a bit too crazy for the MCU, at least right now. Number 8, The Leader. Samuel Stearns, aka The Leader, made his first debut in Tales to Astonish, issue 62. He was working one night at a chemical research plant, and when he was moving canisters of waste material, one of the containers, bam, they broke open and then covered him in gamma radiation. Stearns survived just like Banner did, but it affected him in a different way. He went from being smart to becoming a genius, and his brain could absorb more and more information. It was his superpower. And it got to a point where his physical body started to mutate, so now he has this giant green brain head. I mean, he clearly looks like a villain, and then he started to refer to himself as the Leader, using his intellect to become a criminal mastermind. He clashed with the other Gamma guy, Banner. In fact, he actually ruined Betty and Bruce's wedding. What a jerk. Number 7, Greg Gargoyle. He made his first comic book debut with Journey into Mystery issue 107. Greg Gargoyle, aka Dr. Paul Duval, was a young chemist working for a pharmaceutical company in Paris, and when he spilt a contaminated potion on his right hand, it started to turn into this stone-like material. Not like Medusa though, where you're stone and immobile. Dr. Greg Gargoyle McGee was actually able to move whilst maintaining the stone form. So he looks scary and he actually can do some damage. But everything he touched turned into this stone stuff. And it's super scary to have this happen, but I can't help but chuckle at how human Greg is when this transformation happens. He's like, oh no, my hand. Oh no, my other hand. Shoot, what do I do? Oh no, my face. That's like when they said you shouldn't touch your face during COVID-19. I'm like, what do I do with my hands? How do I act normal? What have I been doing for 26 years? What's going on? So Greg has a few good ideas with this ability. He tossed a stone airplane at his enemies, so that's a cool thing he can do. And then in the Incredible Hulk issue 363, Greg uses his powers to take down the Hulk. It's not easy, but it sure makes it easier when the Hulk is literally stoned during the fight. Number 6, Nightmare. Making his first debut back in Strange Tales issue 110, Nightmare's origin remains a mystery, and it's only known to few. He's both a conceptual entity, part of all of existence, just like eternity, and he's also a deity. So the guy's just trouble. He's just trouble. He was born in the Ever and I dimension, and he was seen as a cousin to the Dweller in Darkness. He knew Dweller's origins. He wanted no part in all that stuff. Nightmare has crossed paths with the Hulk many times. At one point, he caused the Hulk to have these hallucinations, and of course, he had nightmares for years, because his name's Nightmare. You got it. Even Betty Ross, Bruce's love, isn't safe from Nightmare. Nightmare once entered her mind and did horrible things to her while she was dreaming. He's kind of like Freddy Krueger, and seeing as WandaVision didn't want to bring in Nightmare when they had a good chance to, it's probably best if the Hulk and Betty never met him as well. Number 5, Ravage. Dr. Geoffrey Crawford was a professor of physics at Desert State University and was a mentor to Bruce Banner initially. See, Crawford was developing this teleportation device where point A would scan all of your DNA and then zoom, your DNA would end up on the other end. Sounds like nothing could ever go wrong at all in that thing. So Banner went back to Crawford in hopes that he could help him think of a solution for his big green alter ego problem. And then when Bruce got there, Crawford was in a wheelchair and he was suffering from a disease, but he still opted out to help Bruce with his problem. What a nice guy. Turns out Crawford wanted Bruce's DNA in hopes of curing his debilitating disease, but while testing out his theory, he warped to point B and then the DNA had bonded with him, creating this other type of Hulk called Ravage. And because Bruce tried to stop him during this, his DNA meshed together while he was angry, so you already know what that looks like. Number 4, Red Hulk. He made his first appearance in Incredible Hulk issue 1 as General Ross, but come the first issue of volume 2, Ross goes beast mode and becomes one of the Hulk's greatest threats of all time. Red Hulk was created using gamma radiation, like the Hulk, but what makes him more of a foe is the fact that he also has cosmic rays added to that already aggressive mix. So the Red Hulk, or Rolk, which is fun to say, doesn't get stronger the angrier he gets like Bruce. No, he actually gets hotter. Yeah, he gets so hot and then all of a sudden he turns into Ryan Gosling. No, like heat. He physically burns up, that's what I mean. So during one of the first run-ins with the Red Hulk, when the two Goliaths were scrapping it out, the sand around them melted because of this heat and turned into glass, which is pretty cool. More stuff to break too, which you gotta love if you're the Hulk. Number 3, Juggernaut. Kane Marco made his first comic book appearance in X-Men issue 12. Kane and Charles Xavier were serving together in the same unit, but when Kane was under fire, he ran off to take cover in a nearby cave. Now this cave was actually home to the lost temple of Sidorak, so Kane grabbed this glowing ruby from the lap of an idol, which is a great idea if you've seen every movie. He read the inscription and possessed the power of the crimson bands of Sidorak, becoming a human Juggernaut. Then an explosion went off, poof, and the Juggernaut was trapped under the rubble and Xavier got out of dodge. Now after he dug himself out, he destroyed an entire village with the previous man who held the Juggernaut title, Gentaiko, in the mix as well. While it might be cool to see Juggernaut and the Hulk fight in live action, we also have to get the X-Men there first, and it doesn't seem like Marvel is in a rush to bring them in, as we saw from WandaVision. Hashtag Ralph Boner. In World War Hulk in X-Men issue 2, we see these two magnificent beasts go at it, and they're both pretty close in strength, but what makes Kane hard to fight is the fact that he can last some time without needed rest. His stamina is nuts. He can also summon his armor at any time, so that certainly comes in handy. Number 2, Wendigo. This next one comes from Canada, so we gotta keep an eye out for this one, Chris. We gotta keep our peepers open. Paul Cartier made his comic book debut in the Incredible Hulk issue 162. Yes, that rhymed. The Wendigo is a result of an ancient curse from the elder gods of Canadian folklore, and it transforms anybody who eats human flesh into this massive fur-covered beast, so don't eat flesh. It's been referred to as an indestructible force of nature being made from the gods and all. Now this all began when two Canadian lads were in the wilderness hunting, and then when wolves attacked and wounded one of the men, he ended up passing away from the attack, and his buddy was really hungry. He was starving, so he kind of sort of had to eat his friend's skin to survive. Yuck, but also you have to, man, it's part of it. Thus turning him into this Wendigo. Now it took Wolverine's help for the Hulk to take the Wendigo down, and just the origin story alone for this guy, I don't think we'll be seeing humans eating other humans in the MCU anytime soon, or if we do, hopefully it's Marvel Zombies. Either way, I'm not ready for that yet. Number 1, the Maestro. I know that name sounds cool, but this guy is an absolute nightmare to be around. He is not a conductor of classical music, no. In the series Incredible Hulk Future Imperfect, we see this version of the Hulk way more weird than Smart Hulk dabbing. Yeah, even weirder than that. He made his first appearance in a vision in the Incredible Hulk Volume 2 issue 401, and Maestro was the main antagonist in the Incredible Hulk Future Imperfect storyline. Now this story of course takes place about 100 or so years in the future after a nuclear war put the planet super close to extinction. Now this alternate future version of the Hulk, Maestro, had been absorbing all of the nuclear radiation this entire time, and he ended up becoming the strongest thing on the planet. Massive increases in strength and anger plus the brains of Banner made him arguably unstoppable. He's big, smart, strong, and a total nightmare to be around. I mean, maybe we could get some sort of future imperfect storyline, but I feel like it's way too dark for Disney. But hey, never say never.
Coming in at number 10, we've got Blade. Blade is coming back, the vampiric franchise that might have single-handedly saved the film side of Marvel back in the 2000s. The ass-kicking, sword-wielding, stake-tossing half-vampire is going to be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sign me up. This has been hinted at for ages, with rumors dating back to the early 2010s when the rights to this character changed up and became fully usable by Marvel again. Then in 2019, Kevin Feige and Mahershala Ali confirmed it at Comic-Con. Boom. So if you're in the mood for some blood and brutality, just wait a little while longer. Blade is on his way. It'll be interesting to see how he's integrated into the MCU though. Different things have been suggested, and he is getting an entire movie slated for 2022. However, this character stands in stark contrast to a whole lot of what's going on in Phase 4. Multiverses, insanely powerful creatures fighting for supremacy, you name it. And then we've got a vampire hunter. A bit of a power scaling issue, sure, but it'll be fun to see how it turns out. I bet Blade will have a bigger impact than we're guessing. Maybe he'll influence some of the more mainline heroes to rethink how they approach things. It seems like he'll be popping in and out of other movies and shows at assorted junctures, so he's not just limited to his own stuff, which does seem to be standard practice at this point, but at least we know he's not stuck in his own little side project. More to come on this one. Coming in at number 9, we've got ShangChi, some Canadian talent in Marvel. We love to see it. When the cast for ShangChi was announced, they had Simu Liu at the helm, playing the titular hero. What a reveal, from Kim's Convenience to the next major Marvel flick. Of course, we're here to talk about the heroes, not the actors playing them, so that we will do. ShangChi is one of the greatest martial artists on Earth, rivaled by very few. He was raised to be an assassin by his sorcerer father, but soon realized what he was trained to do was evil. So in true heroic fashion, he defected and walked his own path. The tale told in the comics is going to be a little different than the one in the movie, but you can be assured that there will be plenty of crazy martial arts fights and a whole truckload of magic and sorcery. This flick will be especially interesting, as years ago Marvel teased at the inclusion of a popular villain known as the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. This turned out to be a fake out and wasn't actually the character fans were expecting. Now, it appears as though they're ready to reveal the Mandarin in all of his evil sorcerer's glory. ShangChi has taken part in many important battles throughout Marvel Comics and has worked with the Avengers on plenty of occasions. He seems to be a major player in a lot of upcoming events, so this movie will lay some important groundwork for Phase 4. Coming in at number 8, we've got She-Hulk. Yes, indeedy. She might not be getting her own movie right away, but it appears as though Jennifer Walters will be brought to life in a She-Hulk TV show. Cousin to Bruce Banner, She-Hulk has pretty much all of the same powers as the OG Green Giant, although she tends to be a little less powerful. When someone whose whole body was affected by gamma radiation gives you a blood transfusion, you can't expect to have the entirety of their powers. Still, she'll be stronger than most and an interesting addition to the world at large. This will also bring Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner back into the picture. Jennifer Walters is the centerpiece here though, as a lawyer who deals with cases concerning supers. Her turning into one herself could have some fascinating implications. It's been confirmed that after the She-Hulk series airs on Disney+, fans will be seeing more of Walters as she crosses over into the movies. Setting up an iconic character like this will give fans a chance to meet and understand She-Hulk before she debuts on the big screen. Character development can be done with more detail, and it also removes the need to do another introductory movie where nothing major happens on a grand scale. Add in appearances by Abomination and Titania, and you've got a whole assortment of classic Marvel characters finally getting their chance in the MCU. Coming in at number 7, we've got Miss Marvel. On the other end of things, we've got a relatively new hero getting a miniseries too. Miss Marvel, aka Kamala Khan, a mild-mannered teenager with shape-shifting abilities, out to do as much good in the world as possible. This should be extra interesting, as it's supposedly supposed to set up The Marvels, a feature film focusing on the Marvels, Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel. After being introduced in 2013 and getting her own series in 2014, Miss Marvel has been a fan favorite, drawing lots of attention and winning a Hugo Award along the way. After appearing in the Avengers video game as the main character, Miss Marvel continued her rise to fame. We'll see how she uses her embiggening powers to deal with all sorts of problems in the miniseries and then on the big screen. Coming in at number 6, we've got Moon Knight. Mark Spector, everyone. He might not be the strongest hero going, but he's definitely an exceptionally interesting one. An incredible athlete, detective, and strategist, Moon Knight is a welcome addition to any super team, although his dissociative identity disorder sometimes causes him trouble. You know, because he's a conduit for the Egyptian moon god Khonshu. Another mini-series to movie pipeline here, Oscar Isaac takes on the role of Mark Spector. He's been described as an action hero who jumps out of buildings and gets into fights. Surely that's enough to get you interested, right? Not much else has been said about the series, but Moon Knight has a wide and varied history in the comics and should be a joy to behold. Coming in at number 5, we've got Jane Foster. After his wildly popular Thor Ragnarok, Taika Waititi returns to direct the next God of Thunder MCU experience. This one's called Thor, Love and Thunder, and will feature Natalie Portman as Jane Foster, who will now be taking up the mantle of Thor. Poor Jane Foster, tragically losing both her parents while working hard to work her way through medical school and then developing cancer herself. However, through knowing Thor, she was ready and worthy when Mjolnir was no longer able to be used by the God of Thunder. And by picking it up, she also donned the mantle of Thor. This upcoming movie promises to be slick and stylish, just like Ragnarok, and how they handled Jane Foster's character should be a blast. Coming in at number 4, we've got Carnage. Is Carnage a hero? A villain? Something else entirely? Well, let's be real, mostly a villain. A new symbiote, stronger and more evil than Venom, is on its way to the movies in a follow-up to the first Venom flick. Taking over Cletus Cassidy, a convicted serial killer, Carnage will be ready to put some bodies in the ground. Critical reception to Venom was shaky, but audiences seem to love it. Let's hope the schlocky charm of the first sticks around, even with this darker element being added. Woody Harrelson playing the newer, redder symbiote should be a wild time indeed. Coming in at number 3, we've got Gilgamesh. Now we're getting into the Eternals, a group of cosmic beings who have watched over Earth for millennia. Essentially immortal and incredibly powerful, these beings will change how everything operates in the MCU. Gilgamesh is the strongest physically of all the Eternals. Also known as the Forgotten One, he has strength and durability in spades, incredibly difficult to damage, and has a regenerative healing factor. Lifting thousands of tons is no problem for him too. If it's raw brute strength that you're looking for, then look no further. Coming in at number 2, we've got Makkari, another Eternal. This one is more well known for her speed. Appearing male in the comics, Makkari will be played by Lauren Ridloff in the movie. Even with her insane speed pushed to the absolute limit, there are a whole lot of other powers that Makkari can draw upon, including strength, intelligence, and a love for teaching. Makkari seems to enjoy helping humans learn things, especially stuff they probably wouldn't have figured out on their own. Makkari is also deaf, making her the first deaf superhero to appear in the MCU. Finally, at number 1, we've got Icarus. Essentially Marvel's answer to Superman, Icarus is everything an archetypal superhero should be. Big, buff, able to fly, laser eyes, you name it. For all these reasons, Icarus seems to be the most popular of the Eternals in the comics. We'll see if they can hold on to that popularity once the movie hits. There's always that sleeper favorite, right? An incredible combatant, Icarus is known for his defeat of the first mutant, Apocalypse. Hell, he's even taken on Silver Surfer and emerged victorious. He's also got a very strong moral compass and believes that the Eternals should always be doing their best to play the role of hero to the humans of Earth. If they can't protect them, who will? There are so many famous and beloved heroes making their first appearance in the MCU very soon. Phase 4 should be insane to say the least. The hype has been building for years, and now we can see if Marvel's able to pull off a whole new era after Infinity War. Capitalizing on already established fan favorites is one thing, bringing in a brand new cast and running with it is another.
Number 10, Powerhouse. It feels weird to have Franklin Richards at the bottom of a too powerful or most powerful style list. However, while Powerhouse was once one of the most powerful heroes in all of the Marvel Universe, even becoming so when he was just a little baby, so much so that his dad, Reed, actually had to shut off his son's powers, he has been having a rough go in the comics over the last little while. Franklin was believed to be a mutant with the power to warp reality, giving him access to a ton of extra power. But unfortunately, his powers have been on the fritz recently, and now he seems to have completely lost them. It's even believed that he was never truly a mutant, but instead subconsciously used his powers to alter his DNA, meaning that he can't even go to Krakoa currently anymore. I wouldn't expect us to see any kind of reality warping version of Franklin in the Fantastic Four film if we get a version of him there at all. Although honestly, depowering him in the comics may be part of a plot to have him come into the film more comic book accurate to who he is currently in the comics, meaning production and writers wouldn't actually have to worry about his crazy powers and writing those in, which would likely get in the way of any massive threat, as while powered, he could normally stop, well, just about any of them, like that. No Infinity Gauntlet snaps, but just normal power reality warping snaps. Number 9, Rachel Summers. Rachel is 1, really powerful, and 2, just pretty unusual, which makes her a hard sell for the Marvel Cinematic Universe on both those fronts. Although the mutants will be coming soon, so there is a small chance, I suppose, that Rachel could show up at some point. Rachel isn't from the main continuity of Earth 616, but is the daughter of Jean Grey and Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, of her own reality, Earth 811. Rachel is considered to be Omega level, so in theory, the highest level there is of mutant, although there are a few who threaten to surpass that level in the comics. She is an insanely powerful telepath, telekinetic, and can also manipulate time, even being capable of traveling through it. Rachel can also shield herself against time manipulation from outside forces, protecting her against alterations to the timeline. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists about all the cool things happening in the MCU, or not happening in this case, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Squirrel Girl. It feels weird putting Squirrel Girl on this list, but she is weirdly one of the most OP heroes we have in the comics. Squirrel Girl is a hero who can pretty much defeat any threat she goes up against without usually even needing to fight. She handily defeated Doctor Doom using her influence over squirrels, and defeated Galactus just by having a conversation with him and being overall fearless. Squirrel Girl usually befriends many other heroes and villains alike whom she meets, which tends to be her secret weapon when it comes to winning any fight. Doreen Green is also a kind of odd hero, so we likely won't be seeing seeing her in the MCU anytime soon for that reason as well. But honestly, I kind of wish that we would. She might be odd and weirdly OP, but she's also had a lot of great moments in the comics, and it would be really cool to see her cheerful, awkward, and infectiously fun nature come to life on the big screen. Number 7. Vulcan. Vulcan is another mutant who is likely considered too powerful and possibly too complicated to show up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I know we are getting mutants, so likely a lot of these folks could be showing up at some point, but I don't know if Vulcan's gonna be one of them. Vulcan is not only Omega level, but is actually implied to be one of the few that I mentioned earlier who could potentially be past, or at least at times surpass, Omega levels. He is one of the coolest power sets in comics, which is also shared by other super awesome but perhaps less mainstream mutants such as Bishop. I love Bishop. He's another mutant that I would love to see show up in the MCU with the X-Men crew at some point. I mean, we did get Cable and Deadpool, so I feel like that could be possible. Vulcan has no limit to the type of energy he can absorb and utilize, even being able to harness magical or cosmic energy from the likes of Adam Warlock, although I do believe he does have limits when it comes to how much energy he can harness or utilize. Vulcan also can use his powers to reduce or even turn off the powers of those that he faces. Vulcan is Gabriel Summers, the mysterious younger brother of both Scott and Alex Summers. The one that for years we were like, does he exist? Why did Mr. Sinister randomly mention him and then we just never saw him? And then he finally showed up. In the 2000s, he was like, hey, just been here all along, doing other stuff in space, being real messed up. Number 6. Sentry. The Sentry would be an interesting character to have in the MCU because he is actually a hero who was retconned into existence. The Sentry is Robert Reynolds, who was revealed to be a drug addict that was looking for a fix when he stumbled upon the Golden Sentry serum, and accidentally basically became a hero. Unfortunately, due to the fact that Bob was mentally unstable, he ended up not just becoming the world's greatest hero, but also having another persona who was considered the world's greatest villain, known as the Void. When it was revealed that the Sentry and the Void were both Bob Reynolds, the heroes banded together to help Sentry make the world forget that he ever existed, which basically allowed the Void to also not exist. In so doing, Bob went back to living a relatively normal life, but when his memories began to resurface years later, he would return. Doing so would also awaken the Void within him, and it would once again be revealed, this time more to all of the heroes, that the two, hero and arch nemesis, were actually connected and the same person. Number 5. Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer is one of the strongest beings in the Marvel Universe. He is considered to be the most powerful of all Galactus' heralds, and despite usually being associated with that Marvel antagonist, typically acts as a hero, even choosing to stay on Earth for a time after coming to warn them of the arrival of Galactus. Silver Surfer is Norrin Radd, a hero who possesses the power Cosmic, which grants him tons of astonishing abilities. The power Cosmic is OP. He's also virtually indestructible, being immortal, invulnerable, and having a healing factor, even if you could hurt him. He also now is basically untouchable, being intangible as well. And that might sound like a setback, but he can still merge with other living beings, in essence bonding with them and using them as a host. So even though he can't physically touch stuff, he kinda still can. The Silver Surfer isn't just powerful alone either, he also possesses the power to bestow portions of his powers on others, which would have been really handy when everyone was dealing with Thanos, his army, and the Black Order in Avengers Infinity War. Number 4. Hope Summers. Hope Summers is the adopted daughter of both Cable and later Cable's wife in the future, who is actually also named Hope, but not the same Hope. Hope was the mutant Messiah baby, the first new mutant born after the events of M-Day, and actually originally she didn't have a name at all. The baby would be raised by both Cable and Hope, only being given the name Hope Summers after her adoptive mother died, so she was basically named after her. Hope's mutant powers allow her to mimic the powers of others, managing to use those powers at their peak potential, even if she's completely inexperienced with them or unaware even of what they are or how they work at all. Hope's use of any powers she adopts is intuitive. She doesn't need to make physical contact to mimic them, she just needs to be in the area of the mutant who possesses them as well. Her own powers cannot be absorbed, and she has a calming effect on others' mutant abilities, basically helping to perfect and stabilize them. So Hope's also just a powerful character to have around if you're a mutant who's like, I don't really know what I'm doing. This makes her an integral part of the Five, a group of mutants responsible for resurrecting fallen or lost mutants of Krakoa. Despite the fact that Hope's powers are believed to be restricted to the adoption of other mutant abilities, she and Scarlet Witch together rid the world of the Phoenix Force during Avengers vs. X-Men. Now, this is kinda weird because Scarlet Witch no longer is a mutant in the current comic book continuity, which could imply that Hope's powers mimicry is actually not therefore mutant exclusive. Unless something else was going on there and it was more like Scarlet Witch influencing Hope, I don't know, but I'm just saying if Hope was influencing any of that, that doesn't make sense if Scarlet Witch is no longer a mutant. Unless that's all a lie, and that's gonna be re-retconned away. Please do that. Please do that. Number 3. Phoenix. One hero that it seems is really hard to get right when it comes to the films is Jean Grey. Jean by herself is already likely too powerful to show up, although I will say I think you can make that work if you just, I don't know, put more of a lockdown on her power set. However, if we are talking Jean unleashed, Jean at her full potential, that's just not going to work. And if we're talking about bringing Phoenix into the mix and bonding Phoenix with Jean, that's also going to be a huge problem. Anytime you have a character like that who has the power to warp or manipulate reality, you're going to have a challenging time writing any kind of threat for them to face. As with what usually happens with Jean Grey, you can have the Dark Phoenix come in and play villain, you can have Jean struggle to control her own powers and even struggle to maybe hold on to her sanity in the face of her powers, but a hero who happens to have control and be able to basically fix the world as she sees fit, that's a problem. It's like any villain you face, you're just gonna be like, well, you're gone. You never existed. Done. Easy. What's next? Number 2. Living Tribunal. The Living Tribunal isn't entirely a hero, or not a hero in the traditional sense, but is usually considered to be a force of good because of what they represent. The Living Tribunal brings a force of balance and justice to the cosmos and across the multiverse. While there are many different alternate versions of characters from each universe, there's actually only one Living Tribunal, which watches over all of the realities, getting involved when they believe an injustice has been committed and the scales need to be balanced. Of course, only if the injustice is super great. They're not just like, hey, I saw you littered, that's not cool, let's go to court. So not every injustice. The Living Tribunal was the one to call to trial a case of 1610, or the ultimate reality, versus the current main continuity reality of Earth 616. This case was about determining which reality should ultimately be considered the true main reality, as the Living Tribunal considered that the Earth of 1610 could actually be a good replacement for Earth 616. Fortunately, She-Hulk was able to convince them otherwise, because She-Hulk is an amazing lawyer. Number 1. The Brothers. The Brothers are a duo of cosmic entities who exist even outside of their respective multiverses, as each one represents either the DC or the Marvel multiverse. These two characters initially showed up in a crossover comic called DC vs. Marvel, which already made it unlikely that we'll see them anytime soon in the MCU, because we would then need a crossover movie, which I don't think is going to happen yet. Maybe at some point. For a time, the brothers considered fighting one another in an attempt to acquire complete uniqueness, but instead decided, as they were pretty evenly matched, that they should appoint representatives from their universes to act as their champions. It's believed that the brothers are actually more powerful than the sum of their parts, meaning that even the Living Tribunal could be considered below them in terms of power levels and importance. While the brothers also have a male-centric name, the Brothers, it should be noted that they're actually genderless, so they're also kind of the sisters. They're just whatever. They're just called the Brothers. They look like giant mechs, so you know. No bits. I don't think.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Mr. Sinister. Dr. Nathaniel Essex made his first debut in Uncanny X-Men 221. Now he's not that easy to forget once you take a glimpse at him, because he's kind of terrifying in every way. He's also obsessed with experimenting on mutants, and yes, that includes himself. He was obsessed with Darwin's theory of evolution, but he felt like they were shackled by too many moral constraints. Doesn't that sound lovely? It's off the bat. He couldn't get funding from the Hellfire Club, so he got together a group that he named the Marauders, and then he got them to kidnap people off the streets of London so he can then experiment on them. So dark already, the guy is twisted. He even tried to experiment on his son, who was no longer alive. This guy might be a little bit too twisted for the MCU, but he does bring back dead characters, so maybe he's a blessing in disguise. Number 9, Blastar. Making his first appearance in Fantastic Four issue 62, Blastar once was the ruler of Balur, a planet in the negative zone. The inhabitants of said planet were not a fan of this horrible ruling, so they voted him off the island. They revolted and sent him adrift into the cosmos. Now during that field trip in space, he bumped into Mr. Fantastic, who at that point was already on his way back to Earth with the Inhuman Triton. So Blastar followed them through the portal portal, teamed up with Sandman and fought the Fantastic Four. He ended up losing this battle and was sent back to his own dimension, which sounds like a win, but this was only the beginning. He then became king once again, but this time he expanded his territory. It also helped that this time around he stole Annihilus' cosmic control rod. This guy is pretty hardcore, and at one point in the comics, he tried to collect all the Infinity Stones before Thanos. Somebody tell Blastar he's a little bit too late for the MCU. And before we continue on with this list, you know the drill. If you're loving the content, or if you want a part 3, or if you're just liking the curls so far, give us a thumbs up. It really helps us out quite a bit, and then in turn we can give you back as much as we can. You're the best, thank you so much. Right back to this list. Number 8, Shadow King. Making his first appearance in X-Men 117, the Shadow King is a multiversal manifestation of the dark side of the human consciousness spawned by the first nightmare. Doesn't that sound nice already? Sick. Amal Farouk was the leader of the underground syndicate located in the Thieves' Quarter in Cairo, Egypt. He's a powerful mutant who also happens to be a vessel for said Shadow King. Farouk was able to control everybody around him. It's pretty terrifying. He feeds on the shadows of your soul. So yeah, with Marvel veering off into the cosmic side of things, maybe we could see a Shadow King whenever the X-Men come into the picture. Now in the comics, before World War II, Amal Farouk worked with Baron von Strucker to try and destabilize Britain's political structure. So maybe he's been there the whole time. I kinda hope he's not though, because he's terrifying. Number 7, the Fallen One. First appearing in Thanos issue 11, the Fallen One was once a herald of Galactus, who of course we mentioned in part 1. Now the difference between later heralds of Galactus, this Fallen One was empowered by dark energy instead of cosmic radiation, which was the norm. So in turn he was quite cruel. He was evil enough that Galactus himself had to imprison him. The Fallen One was also a sneaky one. He would often escape and then re-attack Galactus all over again. It was a vicious circle until Star-Lord came in and imprisoned the Fallen One into the Klin, that prison we see in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now when the Klin was later destroyed during a conflict with Thanos and the Maker, the Fallen One again broke free, went back to Galactus, but this time Galactus teleported him back to Thanos. He's like, no, you go fight him, Mr. Crazy Guy, get out of here. Thanos ended up defeating him, but only because he tricked the Fallen One into igniting a gas giant. At this point, Thanos made him become a herald for himself, right? Might as well. The Fallen One can control black matter, which is a pretty big deal. He can use that matter to enhance his own speed, strength, durability, you name it. You wouldn't see him coming either, because he can travel at the same speed of light. Now we just got Thanos out of the MCU, so let's never bring back his herald either. No thanks. Number 6, Spiral. Rita Wayward made her debut in Longshot issue 1. She's actually a loyal servant to the spineless Mojo that we mentioned in part 1 of this list. But it didn't always start that way, of course not. See, Ricochet Rita was once a professional stunt performer. She became friends with a guy named Longshot who was already from that Mojoverse. She was actually attacked by this insane version of herself called Spiral from the future. They fought, she won, and she thought that was the end of that problem. Now you gotta remember that, because it's for sure not the end. Rita actually decided to follow her heart and go back to that Mojoverse with her new boy toy, Longshot. And then when they get there, they're both captured by Mojo. Longshot's mind was wiped, now forgetting Rita, which is so sad already. But for Rita, it just gets worse. Mojo got his scientists to modify her mentally and physically, so now she has 6 arms, and her hair is also gray, and now, oh, she can also see other dimensions. She was like a twisted little version of Mojo, and she got trained in the dark arts of magic and body modification. And as you may have guessed, that future version of her was just that. Mojo sent her new and improved self to go back in time and attack her past self. It's just a nice loop of trouble. Number 5, Kid Omega. Quentin Quire made his first appearance in X-Men issue 134. He's been described as one of the most powerful telepaths right next to Jean Grey, and believe it or not, he was once also the host of the Phoenix Force. In his early super days, Quentin was one of Xavier's prized pupils, until he put together the Omega Gang. He wasn't always a bad kid though. It's just on his birthday, when he was still young, he received a call from his parents to say that he was adopted. And honestly, if I got that gift on my birthday, I'd probably turn evil too. I don't blame the kid. This Omega Gang likes to handle humans the way that they feel like, with violence and mutant monologues. He's been described as an Omega level telepath and telekinetic, so if mutants are too much for the MCU right now, Kid Omega surely won't be around for quite a while. Number 4, Overmind. First appearing in Fantastic Four issue 113, Overmind, aka Grom, was an Eternal born on the planet Young. He was a fierce gladiator whose job it was to prevent overpopulation. He conquered hundreds of worlds, he won thousands of fights, and he took out entire species. He's the champion of champions. Literally, the Eternals held the games to test everybody to see who the most powerful was, and Grom was the winner. He's the ultimate physical specimen of the Eternals, and part of me wants to meet him in the next Eternals movie, and part of me doesn't want to know what conquering planets and thousands of souls looks like either. let's keep this guy in the books, definitely. Number 3, Juggernaut. Kane Marco made his first comic book appearance in X-Men issue 12. When Kane and Charles Xavier were serving together in the same unit, they were all under fire, so they had to run and take cover in a nearby cave. Now the cave was actually home to the lost temple of Sidorak. So just who is this Sidorak guy? And also, nice temple by the way. Sidorak is a powerful entity that is both a god and a demon. Best of both worlds, lovely. He was worshipped on Earth way back in the day, but was eventually banished to the Crimson Cosmos. Sidorak's gem contained all of its power, so when Kane stumbled across it and then decided to read the inscription, whoever touches this gem shall possess the power of the Crimson Bands of Sidorak. Henceforth, you who read these words shall become forevermore a human juggernaut. And then Kane turned into just that. Now we have Ryan Reynolds coming over from the Foxverse into the MCU, and I doubt they would bring over such a high caliber character like Juggernaut as well. He might be a little bit too soon for that. He would literally rip the Avengers apart also. We see Doctor Strange summon the Crimson Bands of Sidorak in Infinity War while the team is fighting Thanos on Titan, so never say never. Number 2, Proteus. Kevin McTaggart was the son of Moira McTaggart and her husband Joseph. Now the marriage was the opposite of healthy. Joseph was abusive mentally and physically and just an all-around horrible human being. So Moira got out of there. She didn't even tell Joseph that she was pregnant. The less he knows the better, honestly. Just move on, get out of Dodge. So young Kevin and Moira soon lived together at her mutant research center off the coast of Scotland. Now Kevin, as he got older, manifested mutant abilities, so now he has this uncontrollable need for power. He craved it, literally. So Moira had to hide him. She had to keep him locked up in a cell for years and only referred to him as Mutant X, which is kind of a dark nickname already off the bat. I mean, sure, could have just still called him Kevin, but great. She wanted to keep him safe and also not have strangers get the soul sucked out of them on their way to work. So that's a bonus. Keep him tucked below. But one day while Magneto was fighting the X-Men, Kevin's cell was damaged and he got out. Since the isosteric energy in his cell was no longer holding him back, Kevin was able to take down Polaris, Multiple Man, and he was even able to evade the Phoenix. But after doing so, his body began to burn out, just like Moira tried to prevent all this time. So now the only solution he has was to possess human hosts, one after another. He renamed himself Proteus, with his imagination the only thing that limits his powers. He's made of psionic energy, and he too can warp reality. Every time he possesses a new host, he gets stronger and stronger and stronger, until eventually the host burns out and then he warps to possess another poor soul. And finally, number 1, Amora the Enchantress. She made her first debut back in Journey into Mystery issue 103, and her relationship with Thor is... honestly, I'd kind of love to see this in live action, but I feel like we're quite far from this type of power in the MCU. So half the time she wants to take out Thor and the other half she's trying to take him out to dinner. It's really a love-hate relationship. Now, Amora has a pretty sweet life before all this. She's got multiple mansions throughout all the 9 realms and can make gold and diamonds with her tears. So even on a bad day, she's still getting rich. She's really good at seducing people as well. I mean, it's literally her superpower. For example, Scourge, she would seduce him into helping her with evil plans, and he was like, oh yeah, you bet, anything for you, you're so hot, let's do it. And then afterwards, Amora wouldn't follow through with her side of the deal. She would just continue to play hard to get. She messes with your mind and your heart. That's a double whammy. One kiss is all it takes for her to completely own you and your soul. In the comics, she was sent by Odin to take out Jane Foster because the whole, loving on different worlds thing is long distance, I guess. That's a no-go for the God Squad. But when she tried to attack Jane, Thor intervened and she was banished to Earth by Odin, where she then joined the Masters of Evil. Now, she doesn't have too much experience with hand-to-hand combat because, well, she doesn't really need it. She just gets other lovers to fight her fights for her. The Bachelorette in space. Nice. Tune in. Love it.